welcome to Sassy and Single. My name is Natalie Sady and I am your host. And today we're talking about sex, baby. Eva Clay, thank you so much for joining me, sexologist and psychotherapist.
Yeah.
Yes, you have so many bachelor degrees and diplomas and everything like that. I didn't actually know what to call you, but you specialize in sex.
I do. Yes.
Oh, I have so many questions and I have so many theories on things because I talk to my girlfriends a lot about all of this. Sometimes apparently I talk about it too much, but I'm fascinated by the way people's minds work.
You can never talk about it too much, right?
I don't think so.
No, we need to be talking about sex.
But I have been told that it is too much. So anyway, I'm going to get it all out with you.
All
Maybe
right.
not, but we're going to try.
Okay.
So the first thing I want to talk about, being single, when you start dating somebody, obviously we get to that point where we're ready to sleep with them, whether it be date 1, date 3, date 10. How do we, I think there are so many pressures that we put on ourselves and that society has sort of put on us as well. How do you get past all of that?
Well, it really depends on what you want. So if you're looking for a hookup or for just a sexual experience, that's one thing. And I think what is shifting now in our society is that more and more women are allowed to own their desires and to be sexual beings. And if that's what you want is a sexual relationship, then that's one thing. If you want to cultivate a deeper relationship and you want to cultivate a partnership or something long term, then that's another thing. So I believe that women know, we know in our body when it feels right.
Yes.
And it's just a matter of really trusting that. Now, I don't know about you or the girlfriends you're talking to, but so often we forfeit that.
Yes.
And we give up what feels true and right in our body because we are in the moment, we get carried away, or we have unrealistic projections on the partner. And you know, we often don't realize though that to make a man wait, if you're having sex with men, and let him earn you, let him win you, it's going to endear his heart.
So I encourage my girlfriends that are into having one night stands, go for it, do what you need to do, just be safe. It's not intrinsically who I am. I'm someone that does tend to wait. Not to say I haven't done it before, but what I have discovered as I've gotten older is when I was younger, I used to go and have these experiences with people, and it was often unfulfilling for me. And as a woman, I would walk away, they would have had a good time, and I would go, okay, like it's fine. As I've gotten older, I'm just like, oh no, we're not done till I'm done as well.
Yeah.
And I find that that's what a lot of my friends don't do. So they go and they have this encounter and it's a good time, but it's not fantastic for them. And as women, I think that's what we need to change.
Yes, absolutely. I'm all about that. And I want you to think about sex as good sex as being a release of tension.
Oh God, yes
it
it is.
Especially orgasm, right? It's a sudden release of tension. And so the more tension that we allow to build, both in the relationship and in our bodies sexually, then the greater the pleasure is going to be. So if we're not letting tension build and we're just kind of going for it, then it's going to be like a mini gasmic experience instead of a multi-gasmic experience. So I say let the anticipation build.
But sometimes the partners that we're choosing don't have the capabilities. And I think sometimes the women don't know what they want or need. I think that's the other side of this coin.
Yeah.
I always knew what I needed, but I was scared to ask for it.
Yeah.
And even now when I sort of put my foot down and go, no, we're not done, because not everybody is where they need to be at this moment in time, a lot of men are very confronted by that.
Yeah.
It's, how do you approach it? I mean, I'm probably a little bit too direct, but how do you approach that conversation, especially when you're in the early stages of seeing someone, it's maybe the first or second time you've slept with them?
Yeah.
How do you get about that?
Yeah, well, I recently read a statistic that said in one study, only 11% of women have an orgasm during their first sexual encounter with a partner.
What was the percentage?
11%.
11.
And I actually think that that's lower. I think that a lot of women will report having an orgasm when they really haven't. So what women really need in order to relax and surrender and fully enjoy a sexual experience, whether that includes orgasm or not, is to feel safe and to feel relaxed and to feel trust.
Those are always my keywords. And for me, I the first time I'm with someone, if I really care about them and I'm really into them, that's the barrier for me, because in my head I like them so much that it's so difficult to let go of that power. But I also think that there are men that they don't understand the female body, or they're terrified of it.
Correct.
Or they don't actually care. Yeah. I mean,
they don't know, or they don't care.
Yeah. And I feel like as a woman, that's a really tough thing.
Yeah.
So this brings me to my next point.
Okay.
Faking the orgasm. Yeah. I am against it. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts?
I am also not a fan of faking orgasms. However, I think the vast majority of women have at some point faked an orgasm, and actually men as well. I more and more I'm talking to men.
I did learn that some guys have faked it, and I asked how, and I was in hysterics when I was learning how they go about this to make it seem like they have.
Yeah. Well, I think it's more interesting to look at underneath that, like why?
Yes.
Why are we faking orgasms, men or women? And I find that for women especially, it's because they feel like it would be inconvenient, or it would take too long for them to actually have a real orgasm, or they want the man to feel good and for him to feel proud of his skills or whatever. But they're not actually asking for what they want because they don't know how to ask, or they're worried about offending him, or they want to impress him.
Do you think it's also that do you think it also teaches these men bad habits though? Because if they're faking their orgasms, these guys think they're doing a good job, and maybe they're trying really hard, but they're just hitting the wrong spot, or maybe they just have zero talent. There are so many reasons for why this might be happening, but that's always been my argument with my girlfriends, and the conversations have gotten really heated.
Yeah, this is a touchy subject. Now, the thing is women, who fake it definitely are misleading the men, but they're also, I think, going into sex too soon. So they're not waiting until the trust has been built, where they feel comfortable communicating what they want, even before they go into an intimate encounter. So I'm a big proponent of women sitting down with a partner, and maybe things are getting heated and things are kind of going that way, and you're feeling like, oh, all right, I'm open to this and this could happen. Is to actually have a conversation with your potential partner to say, you know what, I really love I love it when this happens, or I would love it if you XYZ.
Yeah.
So that we can present it to the male partner in a way that gives them a kind of roadmap on how to please us. And I find that men really want that. They want to know how to please us, genuinely.
I find it depends on the guy. There are some guys that I've had relationships with, and that awareness just isn't there. But one of the greatest, it was a very brief relationship. It's a whole story.
Okay.
But
it always is.
we met on a trip. It was my very last day, so nothing ever actually happened. We went our separate ways, but we started talking. Very quickly he said, I'm coming to Australia, I'm coming to see you, I need to see where this goes. I went, okay. So he booked his ticket. We had 2 weeks of talking before he came to see me. And can I say, it was one of the greatest things that I think I've ever done for myself, because we were forced to wait, because we were forced to not have anything going on. We had a whole lot of conversations that ranged from really superficial to sort of being really dirty and talking about, all the things we wanted to do, to almost being clinical. This is what I like. Do you like this? Do you like that? And at times I would sit there and laugh and think, this is the weirdest thing I've ever been a part of, because we don't even know each other. We've had this one day together in person. When we got together in real life, it was amazing, because it was as if it wasn't our first time, but it was. We knew exactly where the other one was, and I had explained that I get these psychological blocks. He was just not having that. He's like, right, if we have to stay here all day, this is what we're doing. I went,
we love that.
But that made all the difference. That made all the difference. And I just kind of wish that men would understand that as women, if they're saying, aren't you there yet? That makes us automatically freeze up and lock up, because we feel like we're holding them up from something.
Yes. Well, Can I explain something
Please.
about that? Okay, because the way that masculine pleasure works is parallel to how they're anatomically built and how their nervous system is wired. And it's very linear. It's like point A to point B, and it's a straight line from arousal to climax and ejaculation. Women are completely the opposite. We are like a winding road. We are the long and winding road.
We are.
And that is the mystery of the feminine and what makes us so confounding and alluring to men. And our pleasure and our orgasms work the same way. So when they're chasing after an orgasm, it actually shuts us down because they're creating a linear goal orientation to sex. And that is not what turns a woman on. In fact, even having orgasm as the goal of sex, I think, is a shutdown.
Yes.
And instead, I recommend making pleasure the orientation around sex, and making connection and depth and intimacy and exploration. And can we make sex a transcendent experience to have two universes colliding?
And I think when you've got an incredible partner that you're in love with, they're in love with you, and also when you care more about getting them off, they care more about your pleasure, I think that's when that happens. Unfortunately, I think it's difficult to find. Like if I had to put my entire sexual past into sort of percentages, I'd say 30% is in that category. There's a big part of it in the center, which is like it's fine, it's satisfactory, and then there's a smaller part which is just disastrous. They're the ones you don't go back to. It's like, okay, thanks so much, bye.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's look at the context in which we're having sex today, because we're having sex within a cultural context.
Yes.
And our culture right now is very oriented towards a pornographic sexual culture. And this is where most men are getting their sex education. And it's very brief, it's very linear goal oriented, and it's very objectifying to the female experience and the female body. So I like to look at it in a generous way as men simply need the education and the orientation. And now in my own sexual history, I have had long-term partners that in the beginning needed to be educated. And it might even look like, I'd really love to have an orgasm. You know, like when you're done, it doesn't mean we're done.
Yes.
And I have a rule. Okay, so I want to share this rule with you, and like for all the women listening, this is a really helpful rule. Is you must have, like, if you're orgasmic, now not all women are orgasmic, and we orgasm in different ways, so like taking into account that. But set a bar. When is it okay for him to enter you? And I like to tell women, if you're orgasmic and you can orgasm from foreplay, pre-penetration, have at least one orgasm before he even penetrates you, before he even enters you. And so that way you're going into penetration feeling already turned on and engorged and aroused, and maybe you have another orgasm, maybe you have 10 more, maybe you don't. But it's going to feel better in your body. And so I actually set that policy with any lover or partner of mine. And if he goes to penetrate me before I've had an orgasm or before I'm ready, I literally will stop him and say,
See, I've never had that conversation with anyone. I do remember somebody saying to me one time, they talked about they enjoyed oral sex so much, and he was coaching other guys, and I stood there and I went, really? You enjoy it? And he went, of course I do. Like, I spend forever down there. And I said, 30 seconds is a long time. And his response was, I get so turned on, so I need to, get up there and sort of take what I need. And I went, did you hear that sentence? Every part of that was about you. He stood there and looked at me, and that ended shortly after. Because I don't think that was going to change, because it was all very selfish and unaware.
Yes.
But you touched on being in a very pornographic culture. So I have always watched porn. Not ashamed to admit that at all. Like, even back in the day when you had to go to a sex shop to buy a video. But I have noticed there is a change in the porn that seems to be available, and I've actually scrolled through sites just to see whether it was me selecting the wrong videos or if it was something that was across a lot of them. And I discovered two things.
Okay.
There are a lot of videos that never show the woman getting any pleasure for herself. She's screaming in ecstasy, but she's blowing him, she's being penetrated by him very violently, but he never goes down on her. He never does anything to really get her off. The other thing is the way blowjobs are depicted at the moment, it is so violent. Every woman is having a penis shoved so far down her throat that she is gagging, she's eyes watering, and I just sort of think, if any guy expects me to do that, I will bite down. I can't.
No. Warning. You've been warned.
But is that...
That's part of it. That's a big part of it. Like,
have you seen that same shift?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And I've done actually a lot of research on this. One of the things I do and I talk about often is porn culture. And just kind of looking with some degree of curiosity and non-judgment. Like I look at in amazement at what pornography is actually doing to the sexual culture. And it's becoming so normalized that the woman doesn't have physiological needs. Like what we see in porn is a man maybe going down on a woman, but she's like moaning in ecstasy. And I'm like, what is he doing? He's just flapping his tongue at her and not actually doing anything skillfully.
No.
So I have a lot of compassion for men who have grown up in that ideology. They just don't know any better.
Yeah.
So what it really takes as women today, as empowered women today, is for us to make a stand for our pleasure, and we have to train our men. And we just have to accept nothing less. We have to toe the line.
And if you have a partner that is open to that, that's amazing. Because I mean, there have been partners that I've had that have said, what do you want? What do you need? Like, show me, I want to know. And then there are other men that when you start answering that question, they are so deeply offended because you haven't stroked their ego and said, you are amazing. Like, you don't need to do anything. And I feel like that's a really hard line for women that we need to kind of navigate.
We do. Two things need to happen for women. Number one, we need to make a stand for our pleasure and not back down from that stand. And take a risk that you might hurt his feelings, he might not call you back again, and he might be super pissed off.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. But our pleasure is worth that. We are worth that. But number two is that we can learn how to skillfully ask for what we need without offending him or putting him down. So there's a way to ask that doesn't make him wrong. And so may I offer you an example? Because I really want you and everybody watching this to learn how to do this. But to, like, let's say a guy is doing something that doesn't feel good or doesn't feel right in your body. So instead of saying, ouch, that hurts, or stop it, or I don't like that, saying, you know what I would love? I would love it if you did this other thing.
Sure.
Or I love it when men go slow. Or I love how slow we're going. And when he's doing something that you enjoy, even if it's like you enjoy it this much, or he only does it for half a minute, reinforce that. So tell him like, oh, I love how you're doing that right now. Will you keep doing that? Don't stop. Oh, I love it. It's perfect. You're so amazing. And just build his ego and his sense of skill that way.
And the other thing is, I mean, every man is different, but also every woman is different. And I feel like sometimes that's the hard part. I did have somebody once say to me, my ex-girlfriend used to love that. And I went, okay, can we not talk about her? But the other thing is, I am different. Like, I am just built differently. And I have a very good understanding of my body and what I need. So I'm actually able to communicate that. But sometimes that is where the difficulty is. They fixate on something that worked for somebody else, and I get it. But we need to just shift a little bit and be open to that.
Yeah. The good thing to remember, I think this helps to ease the judgment around that. I know exactly what you're talking about. But the male brain works on blueprints. They work on plans and scripts. So what worked with the last woman or worked with one woman, they're going to assume will work on every woman because they want the script on how to do it. And we just don't operate that way. Even from time to time. So you might have liked something on Tuesday night, but come Saturday, you want something different.
Yes.
So,
and that does happen.
It happens all the time. Yes, it does.
Like, what you liked it yesterday. I'm like, yeah, but today.
What you liked 5 minutes ago might be different than what you like now. And that is the nature of the feminine. So I find, again, so much of good sex happens before you even get into the bedroom. Because what's going to help him to stay curious about your body and be able to make changes on the fly, so to speak, is the attunement. So the emotional, physical, energetic, and spiritual attunement between you and him before you go into lovemaking. because he'll be able to read you and feel you and empathize with you and actually listen to your body if there's already a connection developed.
Yes.
So the longer that you spend kind of making out or eating a slow dinner or massaging each other before you move into physical intimacy, the better it's going to be. And it just takes communication every single time.
Yes.
Yes.
So the other thing, because we are running out of time, and I hate that because I feel like we're not done. But one of the things that I always talk to my girlfriends about, because there was one girl in particular who has never had an orgasm. She's in a long-term relationship. I don't know if things have shifted for her in the last sort of 12 or 24 months, but she had never had an orgasm. So my question to her was, have you masturbated? And she went, oh, I could never. And I went, oh, but honey, you need to.
Yes.
Because I think that's one of the most important things. How can you teach someone what you need if you don't know?
Yes. Very important for women to know and love and understand our bodies.
So how does a woman get past the block of, I couldn't possibly do that? Whether it be there's religious reasons, there's just their own psychological blocks that they've put in place. How do you get past that to become comfortable with your body?
Yes, I call it your erotic mindset. So important to look at and clear childhood beliefs and programming. Many women feel a sense of shame or disgust or embarrassment about their body. So that's very important to overcome. And I really endorse a self-pleasure practice. So even if you're feeling ashamed or embarrassed about self-pleasuring or masturbation, try to just break out some coconut oil and massage your own body, even if you don't touch your genitals. It's just massaging your skin and see what kind of touch you like. Massage your neck, your breasts, your back, your belly, everywhere else, so that you can then train your partner in the kinds of touch and pressure that you like.
Amazing. So to finish up, your best sex tip that you can give?
For women or men?
Well, let's do one for each.
Actually, I have one that works for both.
Okay, great.
Okay. Connection. Good sex is about good attunement, meaning your nervous systems are in conversation and you feel trust, surrender, relaxation with each other. Men will also really benefit from this because the more relaxed they are, the better their erection and the longer they last. And the more juicy the whole encounter is. So take your time, drop in with each other, share vulnerably before you get into bed.
Amazing. So you have a couple of websites that people can look up. What are both of those?
Yes. Really, you can find everything you need at evaclay.com.
Okay, amazing. And we have your Instagram handle at the bottom.
Yeah, nice.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Sassy and Single. I do feel like there will be a part 2 at some point because Eva, there is just too much to discuss.
There's so much.
Thank you so much. Until next time, I'm Natalie Sady.